about having dominion. We've been dealing with Genesis 1 and 28, how God blessed us and then gave us mandates. And we talked about being fruitful and multiplying and realizing that we were producers and providers more so than consumers. And then we looked at being able to subdue, which means being able to conquer some things and accomplish some things from conquering. Tonight we're going to look at having dominion. I'm excited about what God has told me about having dominion. And one of the things that he first let me know was, when you have dominion, that means you have legal authority or legal right over a particular area. So it's yours, and you have rights to function in it the way you need to function in it. But God said there are three things about having dominion that we miss, and the reason why we don't take control and conquer in our dominions the way we should. If we have the right to rule, we must know how to rule. That good? So the first thing he made me to understand, if you're going to have dominion over something, and you have the right to rule over something, the first thing you must understand is it must be established with a proven government. Got to have a government. Got to have some laws. Got to have its constitution. Keep in mind now, this is your domain. This is something you have dominion over. So the first question you need to ask yourself, I have dominion, but what is my constitution? What are my laws? What are the things that I'm feeding myself that's helping me to rule in my domain? Whatever you're telling yourself, that's the constitution and that's the law that you're establishing in your domain. Every time you tell yourself you can't do something, then you void out something in your domain. We talk about law in a negative way because we look at law as something that prohibits activity. But really, laws are established to open up rights, to give us rights, to give us the freedom to do some things. Regardless of what kind of government you set up, your laws are what gives you the right to function. So if you don't have law and if you don't have a constitution, then your domain is nothing but wilderness. Isn't it curious that the word wilderness, the prefix is wild? So everything in there it has to be conquered. It has to be subdued. Now keep in mind, we're talking about your domain. You need to have yourself on your mind while you're listening to this. What are you doing in your domain to bring things together under the subjection of what God has told you? It does no good for God to tell you what you can have and what you can be if you haven't established any kind of constitution about yourself that's going to help bring it to pass. You're talking a good game, but you're not participating in one. God said I could have my own business, but what are you doing? What is your business plan? And once you get the plan, what are you doing to execute it? What laws have you set up to make this business thrive and prosper? That's up to you. That's under your control. You've been blessed to do that. Come on, somebody. We're too busy looking at what we can't have that's outside our domain. But what are you bringing? What are you setting up to bring things in your domain? What is your constitution? What are your bylaws for yourself? The one thing we don't like, and we've talked about this in past lessons, is discipline. And that's what the constitution that you're going to set up is going to do. It's going to give you discipline. It's going to put you on a course of order. It's going to make things fall in place the way it needs to fall in place. It's going to set up your game plan. If you don't have a valid constitution, if your government in your domain is non-existent, then you have a wilderness. And the first thing you got to do is bring a constitution. telling myself what I can't do to see what I can do? Am I too busy looking at what I can't offer to develop what I can offer? Am I holding my own self back? Come on, somebody. If you're going to rule, the first thing you have to do is establish a proper government. The next thing, if you're going to have a prosperous domain, you've got to have a strong military. I love this one. Got to know how to fight. Some things just settling in your mind, you are going to have to contend for it. You are going to have to fight for it. And if God has anointed you with a warrior spirit, and he has, then you know how to fight. The thing is getting in there and fighting. How much have we let go? How much time have we let go to pass? How much time have we actually wasted because we're sitting on the seat of do nothing? Waiting for God to move all the obstacles out the way so that we can walk into our destiny. That's not how destiny works. You got to do some fighting. You got to do some conquering. You got to build a strong military. Because even after you make plans, even after you set up a government, there are things that's gonna creep in your domain. And you have to be able to watch and pray to get those things out of your domain. Some things are going to fight you to stay. And you have to be willing to do the fighting to get it. Some things are going to cost you. And you're going to have to be willing to pay the price. A lot of us do not accomplish because we figure the price is too high. The price is not too high. We're just too lazy to pay it. Come on up in here, somebody. We don't want to participate in our deliverance. If God had said to the man, stretch forth your hand, and he refused to stretch his hand for, he still would have been afflicted with the palsy. If the man that Jesus said, pick up your bed and walk, hadn't picked up his bed, he'd still be laying there. Come on, somebody. You have to participate in your deliverance. This is your domain. This is your blessing you fighting for. How much energy are you willing to put in fighting? Don't use up all your energy murmuring and complaining. Yeah, there are giants over there. Yeah, there's some things you're going to have to fight you're not used to fighting. But I promise you, if you would just put on the whole armor and suit up and go out there and start fighting, you will find out that the victory was already won. Come on, somebody. And that brings me to the third thing. Once you have a government, and once you have a strong military, the last thing you need to have are allies. Come on, somebody. Everybody needs somebody. You got to have a network. You've got to have a network. Don't be in your domain thinking this is all your domain and you don't have to share it with nobody. God is blessing you to be a blessing to somebody else. Come on, somebody. That's one of the things we get twisted. We think when we get blessed, it's all about us. God is really blessing you so that you can be a blessing to me. And God is blessing me so that I can be a blessing to you. You can't be selfish with your blessing. You got to bring in the allies. Those allies are the people that will help establish you. Those allies may be the ones that help bring you the resources you need. Those allies are the ones that's going to have your back when you start getting weak. But you got to have the right allies. Come on up in here, somebody. Make sure they're allies and not spies. Come on up in here, somebody. The right allies are an asset to your dominion. There are people God gonna join you to. Don't be so foolish and so stupid to think that everybody God gonna join you to is just like you, gonna look like you, and gonna act like you. There are some people God gonna draw you to, and there are some people God gonna draw to you. They may not even believe in God like you, but they are ones that God has sent to be your ally. Come on up in here, somebody. So if we are going to have dominion, and if we are going to rule over those things, if we are going to be more than conquerors, then we have to first make sure we are under a constitution that God has established, that we're following God's lead, that we are obedient and doing the things God said. The next thing, we have to make sure we have a strong army, that we have a strong military, that we're embrace spies, but embrace allies. And go forth and have all that God has said. Take over your domain. Make it prosper. And I'll see you next week.